It's almost Pesach. Holachma, holachma anyo. That's how the Haggadah begins. Holachma anyo diachalu avasana bar d'Mitzrayim. This is the bread of affliction that our forefathers ate in the land of Egypt. Chazal tell us that because matzah is the bread of affliction, when we break the middle matzah, what we are doing is mimicking the proclivities of poor people who don't want to consume everything at once because they don't know where their next meal is coming from. So they save a little bit for later. Later on, the Haggadah quotes the famous saying of Rabban Gamliel, Kol shelo amar shlosha dvarim elu b'Pesach lo yotze yedei chavaso. Anybody who doesn't say the following three things has not fulfilled his obligation for Pesach. What are they? Pesach, Matzah, Moror. So let's take Moror at the end. Pesach, Matzah, Moror. Let's take the last one. Moror. Moror zeh she'anu ochlim al shumo. Why are we eating this Moror? So al shum shemeberu hamitzrim ischayev v'seinu b'Mitzrayim, because the Egyptians made the lives of our forefathers bitter. So that's why we're eating something bitter. Just as lachma anya represents the bread of affliction, moror represents the herb or the vegetable of bitterness. But the previous passage, that is of Rabbi Gamliel, gives us a different rationale for the matzah. Matzah zo shanu ochlim al shumah. What's the reason we're eating this matzah? The Gemara says, Al shum shelo hispik b'tzeikom shel avoseinu lachmitz ad shenigla alehem melech malchei melachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because the dough of our ancestors did not have time to become leavened, to rise, until the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, revealed Himself to them and redeemed them. So here's a key difference. This passage does not say the reason that we eat the matzah is because it's lachma anya, really low-grade bread, the bread of affliction, the bread that represents the oppression of our fathers. On the contrary, instead, we're giving a different reason here that's focused on redemption rather than affliction. So when we say matzah zo shanu ochlim al shumah in connection with Rabban Gamliel's statement, we're saying somehow it reflects a swift response to the call to depart. Time to go. So much so that as the Bnei Yisrael left Egypt, they didn't have time to properly bake their bread. So here's the paradox. Is matzah fundamentally lachma anya? Is it the bread of affliction? Or does it represent the swiftness, the haste of deliverance when we rushed out of Egypt? Now we have another question. This one might be called Back to the Future. If we're eating matzah, and in times of the Beis HaMikdash, the Korban Pesach with the matzah and the mortar, so we're eating it to remind us of the haste with which the Bnei Yisrael left Egypt. That's what Rabbi Gamliel says. So why were the Israelites commanded to eat the Korban Pesach with matzah even before they left? They hadn't left in haste yet. They hadn't left at all. In Parshas Bo, when Hashem speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu and introduces all of the obligations of Pesach, he says, "V'ochlu es habosor b'layla hazeh." You should eat the meat of the Korban Pesach on this night, tzli eish, roasted, umatzos amrorim yochluhu. They'll eat it with the matzah and the moror. If the reason for eating the matzah is because of the haste with which our forefathers left Egypt, resulting in an incomplete baking process, then why did Hashem command the first korban to be eaten with matzah? We hadn't left yet. Another detail that Hashem commanded us before the redemption, before we left, is that we should eat matzah as part of our Pesach celebrations for their generations, L'doro Sam. But Erev Toklu Matzos, on the night of the 14th, eat matzos. So why the haste rationale? Why is it that the explanation of Rabbi Gamliel, we cite the verse that they had to put the dough on their backs when it rose? That happened only after they left. The commandment to eat matzah was given before they left Egypt. So why say that the reason we eat matzah on Seder is because of an event that happened later? Back to the future. So I heard an idea from a friend of mine in the name of the Baal Haturim. I haven't found it in the Baal Haturim yet, although if you put together several commentaries, you might be able to construct this. He argues that we eat matzah for the same reason that we slaughter and eat a lamb for the korban. And that is, according to Chazal, the lamb was a god of Egypt. And by eating it in public, in its form is intact, no broken bones, it's roasted, it's not cooked, the smell of the barbecue is penetrating the air, you could smell it all over. We are demonstrating an utter and complete and total rejection of their avodah zarah, a complete contempt for their pagan worship. The Baal Haturim makes a similar argument about matzah. Turns out that, and you can do your research on this online if you like, it turns out that Egypt valued bread highly. Egyptians developed advanced fermentation, specialized ovens, bread molds, integrated beer and bread as linked technologies. They operated state-run, large-scale bakeries with many different types of bread and shapes, and they engineered bread-based food systems capable of supporting massive labor forces. This was all a creation of Egypt. Egypt wasn't merely a bread-making culture, but one of the earliest food technology civilizations. Bread was a crown jewel of Egyptian society and represented the core of Egypt's identity as an advanced economy, a progressive nation, and an elite culture. We see this in a number of sources. For example, the Torah informs us that Yosef was quite a successful manager, so much so that even after he was sold into slavery in Egypt, he was appointed over Potiphar's house. Potiphar was a hotshot in Egypt, and he delegated everything to Yosef to take care of, except for the bread that was in his hand. And he knew nothing about what was with him, says the Pasuk. This is Bereshis Lamed Tes Vav, that's 39:6. He left everything to Yosef except for the bread that was in his, meaning Potiphar's, hand. So Rashi explains that except the bread that he ate as being a delicate way, you could call it a euphemism, for saying except for his own wife, to whom he did not authorize Yosef to have anything to do with, to have access. But if you read it literally, the verse is paraphrasing Potiphar's boundary. Stay away from my bread. Think of someone who loves fine single malt scotch. The balance, the harmony, the complexity, the aroma, the feel, the texture, the taste, everything about it. And you can imagine someone saying to an assistant, come in, the refrigerator's yours, take anything you want. Just don't touch my scotch. And now we're talking about bread. Potiphar may have made it himself. He may have bought it in a bakery, but it was dear to him. And either way, Egyptian society valued bread highly. And it was something that the Egyptians identified with. My friend Zale Newman, many years ago, suggested to me that perhaps this is why the Sar HaMashkim, the royal vintner, gets a pass, but not the Sar Ofim, the royal baker. He messed with Paro's bread. And that was sacred to Egyptian culture. No chance for him. Later, when Yosef is ruler over Egypt, second only to Paro, his brothers come to Egypt in search of provisions. This is in Bereshis and Gimel, and it's Chavtes to Lamed Beis. That's 43, let's say starting at 29. So despite Yosef's ongoing dialogue with them, he has still not revealed his true identity to his brothers. This meeting is different, however, because his brother Binyamin is among them for the first time. So seeing Binyamin, Yosef becomes so overwhelmed with emotion that he retreats to crying privately and then washes his face before returning. He regained his composure. He orders his staff to serve bread. So they serve Yosef by himself and the Egyptians by himself. And then the Torah says, because the Egyptians could not eat bread with the Hebrews. Hebrews may mean what we call the Jews. It may mean just foreigners. Aver means on the other side. But the verse says they couldn't eat bread with the Hebrews because that would be abhorrent to them. Evidently, bread is so important, it is so Egyptian to the Egyptians, that they can't bring themselves to share their precious bread baked with an outsider. That is, their precious bread that they bake. They couldn't share it with an outsider. So this background, we see that the eating of matzah on the night of Pesach in Egypt was an unequivocal rejection of the Egyptian elitist culture in a way that's similar to the rejection of the God of the Egyptians that is manifest when we slaughter and eat the Pesach lamb. Now, this reveals matzah's dual nature. On the one hand, it's lachamoni. It's lowly food fit only for the lowest dregs of society, the Jewish slaves, in contrast with the elite class of Egyptians who got the bread. On the other hand, matzah also symbolizes the redemption, and a swift one at that, transforming from a symbol of oppression into one of freedom. Why did the Bnei Israel eat the matzah in Egypt on the night of Pesach before they left? Well, God commanded it to them. But why? Why did God command them to eat matzah for generations before they left? Well, think about the mindset. This is slave food that we're eating. This is not good stuff. This is cheap bread. It's slave bread. But then that whole identity shifted. What started as a symbol of degradation transformed when the Jews left. Suddenly, the dough that was on their shoulders became a symbol of redemption. They ate it b'chipazon. They ate it swiftly in haste. This was a divine device. It's like God was setting them up. He was educating them on how he makes things happen. His message: you think things are really bad. You think you're really stressed. You think you're eating terrible bread. Well, guess what? You're eating bread of freedom, and you don't even know it. Once you leave and look back, you'll see that Hashem took you out of Egypt so quickly that the bread that was on your shoulders couldn't even rise. That bread became a symbol of their redemption. It's like the Jewish star that was forced upon the Jews as a badge of persecution during the Holocaust, that later became the symbol of Jewish independence when it is affixed to the flag of the State of Israel. As Jews, we are no strangers to troubles. But this is the month of Nisan, and this is the holiday of Pesach. B'Nisan nigalu, u'v'Nisan asidin ligael. We were redeemed in the month of Nisan, and we are destined to be redeemed again in the month of Nisan. Pesach celebrates how what seems oppressive can become redemption in the divine blink of an eye. Have a good Yom Tov and a good Shabbos.